And when an actor like Andrew Lincoln basically never goes away, rarely did I see him go and sit in his chair and like power down. He was always just around, kind of, he knew what was going on with the camera. He could tell as well as I could how close we were to being ready. And he would start ramping himself up when he felt like we were getting there. When the number one is on set and is the first one there, everybody else gets a little bit inspired to have to kind of keep up with that pace and with that work ethic.
Welcome to Get Scene Unscripted. I'm your host, Jesse Malinowski. We are going to dive into acting insights, meet industry pros, and master the business. Don't forget to subscribe and share. We're keeping you behind the scenes and ahead of the game. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Get Scene Unscripted. I'm your host, Jesse Malinowski. If you have not hit that subscribe button, this is your sign. This is your moment. Hit that button right now so you do not miss an episode. Thanks so much for being here. Make sure to comment, hit us with a review. I love seeing those and seeing how this show is affecting your journey in a positive way. And so let's get started. I have a very special guest today that I haven't brought many crew members to the show. You actually could be the very first one in Mr. First AD Matthew Goodwin. What's up, man?
How's it going, Jesse? Thanks for having me.
It's going good, man. I'm excited to have you here. And I mean, bro, you have just like an incredible resume when it comes to these just epic shows that you've worked on, from second AD, now you're first AD. And so I'd love for you to just start us with like a cool show, like a lesson that maybe you really got from, like a behind the scenes thing that not many people would hear from. So start us strong right now.
Yeah, I just think being a crew member is a lot like being an actor too, in the sense that like from even before I started working, somebody told me, like every day is an audition for us. We're all contractors. Nobody just has a job on a show that you keep if you don't lose it. So as a crew member, every single day is an audition to come back tomorrow. I mean, it's not as difficult, certainly, as being an actor and having to actually audition and get the job. But even once I get hired, if I don't do a good job tomorrow, they could just say, hey, thanks. We're going to have somebody else do that job tomorrow. I work on a weekly contract, so it's not like I have any huge contract. There's no contract at all, but every day being an audition means that I'm got to put on a performance every day to prove that I'm the right guy for the job. So, that was something that was instilled in me very, very early in my career, and it was like, even as a PA, if there's nothing to do, go pick up water bottles. If there's nothing to do and your job is to do a deep lockup, like clean up trash, do something. Someone will see you doing something that's more than the other guy who's just on his phone the whole time, and you might get to come back tomorrow.
Is there a correlation to actors on that? Because like I'd love to know, like, if an actor can be on set and do something similar. And now, obviously, an actor shouldn't be doing other people's jobs, like, picking up the trash and bringing water bottles, maybe. But how does an actor kind of conduct themselves the same way a crew member might show up, in a way of like, I want to make sure I'm invited back tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it sounds terrible, but time is money in this business, and as much as it's an art form, it's also comes down to the bottom line a lot. And I hear about that certainly more than probably most actors do, but being on time is important. It's very we make your call times down to 6-minute increments, and you all know that, but it's really carefully thought of. Like, if you're asked to be there at 10:12 a.m., that really means at 10:12 a.m. we're expecting you to be there and to start the process of getting ready. And all the little things add up. Like when you're invited to set, if you come with some amount of swiftness, you're saving money ultimately, because we have to also time out when the camera's ready, when the actors and touches, hair and makeup are ready, when costumes is got everybody touched up. My job is to time all of that out so that ultimately they kind of all sync up at the same moment that the director of photography says, like, okay, camera is ready. Then I need the actors hopefully to be ready and touched up and their costumes looked at and very close to that same moment. And if I have to start waiting for somebody to come to set, or I have to start like making an invite 5 minutes before I think we're ready because an actor is having trouble just like sensing that urgency that we have, then we get out of sync, and if we wait even like 3 or 4 minutes over and over again throughout the day, that's a half an hour. That's an hour of time that we're not shooting. We're not getting extra takes. We're not, we're
even
not
just an hour. I mean, an hour,
Oh,
if you're
huge.
over 1 hour of overtime for every single person on set has to be an insane amount of money.
Yeah, it certainly can be. I mean, it's a percentage of a whole day. So
Yeah.
it's, but all the little things, they add up. So, I mean, I think just like being on the team is a big help for anybody in production. That being said, that doesn't mean just do whatever they say. Certainly there's I would also say, as human beings, it's not your job as an actor to just do whatever production says. You got to have your own sense of what's good for you. Whether that's signing the Exhibit G or noticing that, it happens that they kind of put your time out a couple minutes before you were really off the clock. And just because they did it doesn't mean it's right. And, you got to stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself at the same time. Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Hey, actors, let me grab your attention for a quick moment because our incredible 3-day event is coming up. This is one of my favorite events of the entire year, the Southeast Actor Summit. And you probably already know that Atlanta is the heart of the Southeast, but the entire Southeast market really is one of the best markets that you could be diving into. And if you're not already working in this market, you probably should. There's so many opportunities. And so this is a great way to dive in. We bring in some of the best instructors here in Atlanta to help guide you and move you forward in your craft, while also including different agents and casting directors, so you can truly get that behind the scenes peek at how to move your journey and your career forward. So I really hope you'll join us. There's more information in the description, so check that out. But if you truly want to not only work in the Southeast, but thrive here in the Southeast, this is a must attend event, period. So I hope to see you there, the Southeast Actor Summit. I love that. What's the proper way to do that? Because I think everyone, when they get in a situation like that, they kind of, they're in the place of like, I want to be invited back. I don't want to burn bridges. Like, maybe that 30 minutes or 15 minutes of overtime is not worth it, on the call sheet. Like, so what's the proper way to go about that and stand up for yourself like that?
Yeah. I think first of all, you need to know what the rules are. As an actor, please don't go to set assuming that someone else is going to just know everything that, all of your contract, that, a lot of times there's ADs and PAs that are running around and making choices that they think are correct. But at the end of the day, if you know the rules, it's a lot easier to just bring them up casually than it is to start a conversation about what it's supposed to be. But I'm a big believer in like boundaries and making sure that people know where your boundaries are. And I think if you can make small adjustments or let people know when they're kind of testing your boundaries, it prevents them from really breaking through them ultimately. And I think if the first time that you notice something, you say something about it, it's a lot less likely to happen again. But again, you got to know what the rules are. You got to know whether you get paid for that hair and makeup time at the end of your day, and whether that actually counts toward your turnaround or not. The contracts are complicated, and thus, ADs can get it wrong. But if the actors really know their stuff and they know what it is, they have a lot better chance of advocating for themselves. Take a picture of the Exhibit G. Also, you never know. They're not going to go out of their way to send it to you. So I would just take a picture and you got it. Let your agents fight for it if they have to later on.
I love that you're bringing up this stuff because it's the business side of things that, sometimes it's a little bit easier for actors to just be like, I just want to do the fun thing, right? I just want to do the fun thing of, just acting and focused on the character and, put me in the cool scene, and there's all these other things that we need to focus on, and it really can be the difference in you making money or losing money, which is, another reason why we're doing this. You're not doing it just for fun. Otherwise, you just be in community theater. So you were on The Walking Dead for 9 seasons. AMC's show was just, we were talking about all the different spinoffs and stuff that they've done, but it really was an incredible. It's still going on, really, but can you talk about being on that show and seeing some just really incredible actors on that show? What was something that you learned that really could help actors that are moving forward, that it's like I saw, whether it be one of the mains or some of the guest stars that came on, or even co-stars? Like, what was some stuff that you kind of learned being a second or first AD in all those seasons that could really help us?
Yeah, it starts at the top. Andrew Lincoln was an absolutely incredible number one, a great leader. His conduct inspired the other actors to try to live up to how he behaved. That a lot of times for me, that's just like leadership in like being there, being ready, being available, getting to set. I say getting to set a lot because a lot of the time what I'm dealing with is trying to sync all of the parts up together to be ready at the same time. And when an actor like Andrew Lincoln basically never goes away, rarely did I see him go and sit in his chair and like power down. He was always just around, kind of, he knew what was going on with the camera. He could tell as well as I could how close we were to being ready. And he would start ramping himself up when he felt like we were getting there. When the number one is on set and is the first one there, everybody else gets a little bit inspired to have to kind of keep up with that pace and with that work ethic. And I certainly take that into my own, career, where as a first AD, it's not the top, but it's a position of influence. So I am usually the top of some chain of communication where if I'm doing it in a respectful and calm and loving way, the people below me are likely going to pass on that same energy, that same spirit, that same way that you say things, the way that you talk to people. Whoever is the top point, it travels down. Now, at the same time, I have also worked with people who are not pleasant to work with as number one, and ADs that are not pleasant to work with. And that energy also trickles down. That's the way that their staff talks to background or talks to actors or talks to craft service or whatever it is. And I think when you're in a position of influence, you have the responsibility to kind of do that wisely.
I love that. And I think leadership is so important. So I love that you brought that up. Is there a way for someone that's coming on for a day or a week to bring a similar type of leadership or conduct themselves in kind of an inspiring style manner like you're talking about?
Yeah, it's certainly not the same.
Right.
I won't say that it is, but anybody can be a leader. You can behave that way. You can lead from the back seat. You can suggest things as someone who's not in control. But I think when someone gets up and goes to do the thing that we all know needs to be done, other people follow that. I mean, it's less likely that, I don't know what it is. You're finishing a phone call, but you're moving in the direction of where you need to be going at the same time instead of staying put and not moving. That's a silly example, but
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen, PA comes, hey, we need you on set, and nobody quite moves.
Yeah. And again, that doesn't mean that your only role is to just do as you're told, but ultimately every one of us, actors, day players, background actors, again, craft service. I'm shouting out to craft service a lot today for some reason.
No,
the
they're
PAs,
important.
the ADs, the director, the UPM, the producers, like we are all responsible for creating this place where creative juices can flow and where people feel safe. And that's not just actors, but like crew members do a better job when they don't feel like people are going to fire them if they make a mistake. Actors are going to do a better job in an atmosphere of loving support, in an atmosphere where people are smiling and are happy to see you. I like to say welcome to the family when there's a new actor on set. And I hope that makes people feel welcome and like they're supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. But every one of us, from the day player who's arriving to buy into the atmosphere, we're creating our own little Sim City where everybody needs to be kind of do their job to create a place where we can make a great movie or shoot a great TV show or, however you want to think of it, create art. I have to think of it a little bit more in like a logistic mode, but I do jokingly refer to like television as the art factory where we make art in mass quantities. It's both. It's a little bit of both, but we're all responsible for creating the atmosphere and creating a place where people feel safe to perform.
I love that because, everyone that's on set should feel empowered to be able to make a difference, and feel like that they can, not just like, oh, I'm just here for the one day or I'm just here for a couple of days and my part is small or, whatever, negative stuff goes through our head. So like, I love that, we can all lead, we can all have influence. We can make that difference. I love that. I know that was it your first project or one of your first projects of Fred Claus in Chicago?
Yeah, that was the first movie that I ever worked on.
And I got to know, because it was in Chicago. I heard you say it was 7 degrees. Mm-hmm. I want to know how that role didn't drive you away from the business. But instead drew you in. I feel like 7 degrees in Chicago, I'd be like, yeah, this ain't for me.
Yeah, a lot of things go back to like personality types for me. I think my personality type has always been one of like doing hard things is not bad. I think certainly there are people that don't like to do hard things. To me, whatever you want to call it, a glutton for punishment, or just I'm a person that always has enjoyed a little bit of kind of pain in the gain. So being uncomfortable and accomplishing something that other people might not be willing to do has been attractive for me. And I think as an assistant director, you have to sort of have that as a part of your mindset, because you don't get any of the glory and the fame, but you get a lot of the stress and the difficulty of making it happen for other people. And I think just as a PA, it was exciting to do something that maybe other people weren't willing to do. And that snowballed. Like, I was willing to work all day long and come home and smile about it, even though it wasn't that fun sometimes.
How often do you bring that into your everyday life? I assume that, like, just based on what you said, I'm like, oh, this is just kind of who you are. Like you said, like, hard things aren't bad. I love that. How are you able to, because that is totally a mindset. How are you able to restructure your mind to almost be excited about these hard things and not put them in a category of bad, knowing that you're going to grow from it? Like, where did that come from? How have you been able to shape your mind to think like that?
Yeah, I think adversity is just, I don't know. How have I been able to shape it into my mind? A lot of the things that I say and do and probably will continue to say, like the little mantras that I have, and that's maybe not the best word, but a lot of them are spiritual, biblical things that along the way, like suffering is not the worst thing in the world, especially when it creates something beautiful. Or like maybe for moms out there, like there's a difference between, this is something that we learned like in birthing class, like one of the ways you get through birthing pain is by understanding that the pain has a purpose. So I'm not saying it's that, but understanding that the difficulty of doing a hard job has a purpose, that you may get to do the thing you love. You may get to go to set with all your hard work and auditioning. You may get to go to set, so the pain isn't as painful. With childbirth, the pain is not as painful because you're making something beautiful with it. It doesn't just hurt. It's painful and uncomfortable because something great is happening through it. So I don't know. That's just a little bit of, I mean, there are painful things that are just painful, but doing hard work is not really pain in my eyes. It's just creating something that's worth it.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so good. That's so good. And I agree with you. And again, it's all how you're looking at it. I mean, people can say, oh, like, why did that happen to me? Why did I have this, my chance of getting into the film industry as the PA? Why does it have to be 7 degrees? This type of shit always happens to me. It's the language and the things that we say to ourselves. And so, just putting something that you said, a mantra, I agree. Like, pain has a purpose, it's like, so this might not be ideal, but there's a bigger purpose behind this, and I'm up for it, and I'm ready for it, and I'm going to fight through this and arrive to it. And I love that.
Yeah. And, my wife, Mandy.
Shout out.
Mandy Christine Kerr. Beautiful, talented, gallant, brave. She can do anything. I understand the actor side of all of this too, because I'm married to an actor, and it's not easy. Like, you could spend your whole life auditioning and never get a role. I mean, that is something that could happen. Hopefully it doesn't. But that is something that could happen. So if you make your career success your master, you're putting your sort of happiness and the control of your life into something that you can't control.
100%. Yeah.
If you can find ways, and this is the hard work that I think, I'm 40 years old. I'm not new in the industry anymore. I don't want to call myself old, but I feel old sometimes. There's a lot of hard work that needs to go into that mindset. And some of it is knowing your worth, knowing what who your master is. Again, spiritually, mine is, Jesus is my spirituality. That's my worth. But there are a lot of people that put their worth in their career.
In the bookings.
They put their worth in their performance. They put their worth in their bank account. When your worth is something that is totally subjective, like success or your career, you're allowing sort of happiness to be fleeting. You're allowing someone else to decide whether you're worthy or not by giving you the role or not giving it to you. You're allowing your paycheck to tell you whether you're good or not. When you have a worth in, again, I would say in your creator, or you have a worth in your family or in your spouse or in your children, you have a greater ability, I think, to see successes that are within, your circle of influence. Your kids, what you give to your kids can create worth in you. The happiness of your spouse can create worth in you that you can't have if you just think money is the most important thing and you don't have any of it. Then you're worthless in your own mind, There's a lot of hard work that goes into the mindset of kind of creating do hard things and creating just because I didn't get the part doesn't mean I'm not worthy or I'm not good.
Yeah. And I have to admit, I haven't been doing it lately, but there's, doing like cold plunging or cold showers. There's this, literally it's good for your body, but the reason that I actually, when I get in the habit of doing it and I fall off and on with it, is like one of the reasons I like it is because I'm working out the muscle of, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You never, like, even if you're used to it, you're like, I don't want to put the cold water. I don't want to get into the cold water. I don't want to turn the cold water on. But you're working out that muscle of like, this is something I don't want to do. And if you are smart, you know that you don't even have to be smart. You know that hard things are going to come up. Things that you don't want to do are going to come up. But what are you going to do? Like, what choice are you going to make when that happens? And if you want to grow and you want to get to the next level, you have to say yes to it.
And it's not always high level. Like a lot of things I just said are like very, philosophical, but like that is 100% true. And for me, when I don't want to do something, not all the time, there are certainly things you don't want to do that you should not do because they are stupid or dangerous or not good for you.
Right.
But also there are things you don't want to do because you know they're good for you or because you know they're hard, but they will reap rewards.
Yeah.
And like just the other day, I got, and this is rare for me, I got really laid into at work about something I just really felt like I did not deserve. But I didn't want to tell my wife about it because it was embarrassing to get yelled at, And
I think you're telling her now.
Yeah, well, I'm telling everyone now. No, I told her. What I'm saying, I came home on my way home from work. I was like, I do not want to tell Mandy that she's going to think I'm not good at my job. She's going to think I'm going to get fired, da-da-da-da. And then I was like, I have to tell her because I don't want to. It means I probably absolutely need to tell her. And I felt a lot better after doing something I didn't want to do at all. And my wife loves me. She helped me get through it, but I almost didn't tell her and just stewed on it all night long because I had a pride issue and I just didn't want to do the hard thing, which is admitting that like someone didn't think I was good enough for that moment,
Yeah.
So a lot of mental gymnastics in this business.
Hey, are you a parent of a young actor? Then you're going to want to pay attention to this because Get Scene Studios has what we call our Rising Star program. This program is incredible. It is a monthly program that puts you in front of an industry pro every single month and focuses on what a young actor needs to be focusing on, which is auditions. So every single month we focus on either theatrical auditions or commercial auditions so they can be set up for success when they get an agent or if they already have an agent to really succeed at these auditions and even begin to make money at this. So we bring in different industry pros every single month and agents and casting directors and then work on those auditions. So if this sounds like something that you would like to get your child or a friend that has a child involved in, all you need to do is email risingstar at getscenestudios.com, and we will let you try your first month for just $1 a class. That's right, only $1 a class. All you got to do is email us, and we will get you all set up and ready to go to improve those auditions and then also get in front of those industry pros, because we are Get Seen. Thanks for watching. Totally. God, you're so right. Speaking of some mental gymnastics, and you brought up Mandy, the wonderful, talented, beautiful,
Gallant.
Gallant.
That's my favorite word to describe
yeah. I was
her.
like, I don't remember all the words that you used. So you're married to Mandy, who's an actor, and that has to be a bit of, well, mental gymnastics, because I know as an actor, you want to be on set all the time. And so if we take you as an example, the husband now who's working as the first AD on Grosse Pointe Society, we've been on set for months now, many more months to come. Like, you leave for work every day. You know, I know that she's happy for you, but at the same time thinking, well, I wish I was going to set how do you balance this? I'm going to be a supportive husband, but then also need to support the family at the same time. You know, like, just, it's got to be a really interesting kind of jungle gym that you're in there.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, and it's not always easy. Certainly, it helps and hurts to have two partners both in the business. I certainly know people who are happy because their spouse is a nurse and they have no idea what they're going through, and they have no desire to go through or to be on a film set. And plenty of other people, you know, a lot of us, we're carnies. Many of us, like, we have to stick with our own because they're the only people that understand how difficult it is.
Yes.
And we can commiserate and be each other's sounding boards. But yeah, that also creates opportunities for our minds to play tricks on us and to say, well, it should be me who's working this week or today or next week or next month. And certainly there are moments when that happens in our relationship. I think, and maybe we admit those to each other. You know, I think talking is like a long lost art between spouses and partners. Just taking the time to talk and tell each other how you're feeling. You know, when you're having a hard day or you're having a hard time, saying that to your partner, I think will end up creating a place where we don't have to hide when we're feeling jealous or when we're feeling envious or when we're wishing we were the ones, that we can, you know, maybe it's not every moment of every day, but you can say at the end of the week, like, this week was tough. Like, it was tough being at home. You know, Mandy might say to me, you know, because I had 3 or 4 auditions and, like, I didn't get any of them, and you were at work all week. Certainly that has been a topic of conversation, but I think communication is like a huge, huge thing for people and relationships that they just maybe sometimes don't do, is just really talking to each other and letting each other into your brain. And it's not always on dates, and it's not always like structured time where it's like, here, we're going to connect right now. It's just communicating all the time and telling and making sure that people know how you feel.
I mean, you're so right. Beautifully put. And I mean, it goes back to like the kind of the hard things, you know, just like when you said what happened at work, and you're like, oh, I don't really want to say this, but it's because you don't know the outcome in that communication, right? You're going to admit and be vulnerable and kind of put yourself out there and talk about this frustrating time. And you don't know, per her response, is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? Mm-hmm. And you're like, but I definitely don't want it to get worse. So maybe it's not worth the risk, you know? Yeah. And I think that's why communication can be so scary sometimes, and why we don't want to do it, yet rarely is worst case scenario ever happening. And when you're around people that you love and people that support you, they are most likely going to do that. They're going to
Yeah.
love and support you and do the thing that's going to help, not make it worse.
Most likely. Yes.
Most likely. Most likely, yeah. Going back to actors on set.
Yeah.
You know, I think certainly if you don't do a good performance, that is not going to be good. But assuming you got the audition, you booked it, your performance is going to be fine. How an actor conducts themselves on set really can like make or break their stay and how everyone is going to view them for the future, maybe bringing them back, all sorts of things. Can you give some examples? I know you've given some examples when it comes to like time is money, make sure to like be where you need to be and also stand up for yourself. But do you have any other examples, positives and negatives? I actually would almost want to just hear the negatives. Normally, I'm not like the negative guy. However, I think that people that maybe are not conducting themselves on set properly, they don't know they're not conducting themselves properly on set. So instead of like calling people out, maybe if we just hear some examples, someone could be like, oh shit, I did that.
Yeah.
So what examples do you have for like, you know, things that you want to see as, you know, you're up there, right? That the actor probably doesn't hear about because you're just like, whatever, they're not going to be back tomorrow, so who cares?
Yeah.
But like, what are some examples we can hear?
I think and this goes back to like what you were asking before, but I think asking questions is not a bad thing. So if you want to do something when you're sitting around, you know, whatever, you're getting wired, you want to ask a question about to the guy who's wiring you or the girl who's wiring you. Ask her, well, why are you putting the microphone here? Usually they put it here, not in like a condescending way, but like, there are so many little tricks of the trade, and everybody's got a wealth of experience that, you know, sometimes the sound guy might tell you they're wiring your jacket instead of your shirt because they're anticipating when you're holding the grocery bag that the bag might ruffle on your shirt more than it is on your jacket. Or more likely, they're wiring your jacket because it's quicker. They can wire the jacket without you there and then just connect it to the mic pack. You know, like you can ask questions of PAs. You can ask questions of ADs. I mean, at least me, maybe some not so much. You can ask questions of camera guys. I think a huge thing, and another one of these, you know, we'll get into some of the technical stuff, but like understanding the camera and what the purpose of the shot is are hugely important. Understanding the lens size, understanding that the difference between a 65 millimeter lens and a 35 millimeter lens, you know, understanding, you know, you can look at the camera and see the number on it and know what the lens size is and know what the shot is, you know, understanding that usually one of the cameras is going to be always on a wider shot and, you know, B camera maybe is going to be on a tighter shot. Like people, I think, have lost the art of sort of like understanding the technical aspect of it. You know, understanding what the purpose of the marking rehearsal is. Like when we rehearse a scene with the director, it's a time to ask questions, to figure out what you're physically going to do in the scene. Most of the time, that director rehearsal, especially on TV, maybe less so in movies, that is not the time to get into every beat of the performance. It is if you feel like that's going to affect what you physically do. Like if you need to work out a beat to know when you stand up in a scene or when you sit down or when you move to the back of the couch, that's important to figure out. But if you're two people sitting across a table at lunch, all of the emotional beats don't need to be worked out in that initial rehearsal, because the reality is, again, at the art factory, if I'm assuming you're going to work on episodic television, you know, because that's the most work. But the purpose of that first rehearsal is for kind of figure out what you're going to do generally, and then show it to the crew so that they can get to work setting up the shot. As soon as that rehearsal's over, that doesn't mean you have to stop talking about the scene. It does mean the best thing you can do is move off the set and finish the conversation somewhere else so that the crew and the cameras can start getting in position, the DP can start lighting. All those things can finish somewhere else. But the longer, you stand on set in that rehearsal space, the longer it's going to take ultimately to get to the next shot and to get through the day, because we can't all do that at the same time. The other thing about, the marking rehearsal, after we kind of figure it out with the director, I'm going to call everybody in for a marking rehearsal, and it's not just for marks. Everybody of every name is invited. But we want to know where you're going to stand, where you're going to sit, because ultimately when we set up the cameras, again, maybe not everybody understands this, but the lenses have to be manually focused, which means the guy in the back with the little turny knob, the Preston motor, he's changing the focus, the focal length of the lens based on the subject that's in front of the camera. So if I'm standing on a mark, he's assuming that's where you're going to be when the camera's pointed at you. If you're 1 foot behind that mark that's on the floor, he's going to where he thinks you're going to be, and then he has to find you because you're not there. So the focus will most likely be out of focus for a moment. And then if you're moving around and that's not part of what we talked about, he's got to keep finding the focus. Especially the closer you are to the camera, the more important the focal length is going to be. So if you're in a really tight close-up and the camera's right in front of you and you're an inch off, you might be out of focus. The further away, the wider the lens, the less important that is. But understanding that there's a purpose, it's not just to constrain you as an actor to a place. It's to make sure that your performance is captured well. And if your mark's not right, like this is one of those things. If you feel like you're not going to go to where that mark is anymore, just say something. Just say, I think I'm going to be like a step back from here. And they'll move your mark and they'll know where you're going to be. All of those things, technically, those are things that maybe you're not thinking about as an actor, but like, again, we're all in charge of creating this thing where the performance is good, it's in focus, the lighting's good. If you're not on your mark, the light's going to be pointed in the wrong place. All of those things kind of factor into having a great day and keeping the atmosphere, good and progressing.
I love that you brought up the ability to ask questions, kind of learn, from the sound guy or the camera guy as you're there. How do you walk the line though? Like I love the blocking rehearsal in your mark and being like, I don't think I'm going to be there. I'm going to be here instead. Like, where's the line of you overstepping? Rehearsal jargon, pun intended.
That's a good one.
How do you walk that line where, this is just a confident, good artist, actor, and like, oh God, this like prima donna annoying guy.
Yeah. I think two things. One is, I think a good way to word it, which typically works out well, is like, you don't maybe necessarily know exactly who you're asking the question to, but saying, is it going to mess anybody up if I'm here instead of here? Again, that's kind of like theoretical, but saying, is it going to mess anybody up if I'm one step to the left? It may mess somebody up, and it may be critical that you're on your mark. And allowing somebody to say, yeah, actually this shot doesn't work. If you move one step to the left, you're right behind Jesse's head and we're not going to see you. But if you say, if I'm one step to the left, it's fine. If it helps your performance, ultimately we all win. If it hurts the shot, maybe, and it's super important to you, it's worth having a conversation about. But if it's just because you think maybe you want to be a step to the left, maybe you let it go. I think times to ask questions are in down moments, not like obviously while people are doing something actively, but in those downtimes when, you're setting up, that's a good time to maybe ask hair, makeup, or costumes or PAs a question. When you come in and there's a quick lighting adjustment happening, that's a good time maybe to ask the camera guy about, hey, I heard you say diopter. What does that mean? Or what's a slant focus? Or, like those little technical questions are fun to know, but I think ultimately the more you know, the better you can do it at any job.
And you don't think that makes an actor look green and not like, I think the fear of anyone asking these types of questions is like, well, I don't know. I guess I'm supposed to know what slant focus means.
I think that's a good question, Jesse. And it was actually something I wrote down, which is that, even for me, on The Walking Dead, I spent 5 years as a key second AD. One day I became a first AD. Sorry, I bumped it. One day I became a first AD, and I felt like I had to pretend like I'd been a first AD my entire life. And I think I did that because I didn't know everything about it. I was overcompensating for my lack of knowledge by pretending like I did know everything and had lots of experience doing it. I think it's up to you, but there is a middle ground of being confident in what you do know and being eager to learn what you don't know. Now, I think if you're on set and you don't know what a mark is, you will look green. That there are basics that you should know, but if you don't know what a diopter is, you're fine.
I don't know what a diopter is.
Okay. A diopter allows you to adjust the focus. A diopter allows you to focus shallower than you could without putting it on. And it's hopefully, I explain things as an AD, not as a camera guy. And like a split diopter allows you to focus different parts of the frame.
Next time I'm on set, I'm going to be like, you breaking out the diopter? What's up?
Yeah. I mean, also ultimately, very quickly, you can only focus one plane with the lens. So like if I'm straight on to Jesse's face, I'm focusing like your nose or your eyes. But that means your ears could be out of focus depending on the focal length and the lens that we're using. If I need your nose and your ear to be in focus at the same time, we've either got to move your nose and your ear so they're on the same plane to the lens, or put a different type of device on that allows me to rotate it around and keep two things in focus that are on different planes to the lens. Don't leave comments about how poorly I explained that. But there's a lot of, there's stuff you don't need to know. There's stuff you absolutely do need to know. I think you'll know if you ask questions about things. I don't think people are going to think you're green. If you ask somebody what a call sheet is, someone might think you're green.
100%. But the problem that I'm seeing here, though, Matthew, is that you don't know what you don't know, right?
Sure.
So like right now we can say very easily, well, don't ask what a mark is, but how do I know diopter is not the same as a mark, So I'm going to just say some stuff here and then you jump in after.
Okay.
But, I think what this means is you just have to be on as many sets as you can get on. You have to get as much experience as you can. Keep being like, I love that you're talking about eager to learn the things that you don't, maybe don't ask 1,001 questions every time you're on set. Maybe just like 1 or 2 questions, and just really watch and pay attention and have the intention to learn something new every time you're on set. And I think going in with that intention is going to help. But I'd love for you to add anything, because again, you don't know what you don't know. So like if I am the actor that says, I don't really know how to read a call sheet, does that make me green? I don't really know if I don't know. Yeah.
I think you can. So one of the things you can do, even if you're on set for one day, form relationships with crew members, talk to them, ask them about their family, ask them about, I'm telling you, people at work are begging for emotional connection. People on a film set, like, I would so much rather talk to you about my kids and my wife than about how the day is going. You know, are we making our day? How are we doing on the timeline? Like, if you ask me a question about me, I'm gonna have a connection and a relationship with you. And then, you know, maybe now that we have a connection and a relationship, you might in a quiet moment ask me about a split diopter, and I'll be happy to tell you. Now, if I don't know you, I've never spoken to you, and I'm in the middle of something, I'm less likely to explain that to you, but that goes for anybody. I would just talk to people in moments that feel appropriate. Your fellow actors, those are great people to form relationships with. I mean, we're all, you know, you're all doing it. There's a big part of this business is just connections, is forming relationships and, you know, leveraging those relationships when the time is appropriate. And I think that's just a small version of like, maybe it's your fellow actor that can answer that question for you about why it's so important to hit the mark, or why it's so, you know, whatever, what a fisheye lens is. Hopefully we're not using too many of those, but there's a million things you're going to hear people say. And again, I think knowledge is totally power in this business. And I would say humble yourself to ask the questions when it's appropriate, instead of pretending like you already know everything about it, because I promise you it's most likely that you don't. I don't. I ask the camera guys questions still. When they say something and I don't know what it is, I will go and say, what on earth is what is glimmer glass? Something I didn't know about, or why are you always rotating the polarizer? Like, these are silly, stupid sounding things, but these are things that I hear happening with different DPs, and I want to know what's happening now when he's rotating the polarizer to get the reflection off a window or off somebody's glasses, or he's putting in glimmer glass again. What on earth is that all about? Well, that's a thing with little pieces of broken glass in it that kind of like makes your face kind of a little bit fuzzy and beautiful, like pantyhose used to on lenses, like there are all these fun, weird things. There's actually a book called Strike the Baby and Kill the Blonde.
Really?
Which I got early on, which has just a ton of film jargon in it for people who are super interested to find out what all these silly things mean.
I have a book like this, but it is not called Strike the Baby, Kill the Blonde. Yeah, I thought you were going to say the book that I have, which I don't remember the name of. I think it's just like, 1,000 film and TV terms you should know, or something like that. But
this one's controversial.
Yeah,
probably,
I like that book. That book's good. Well, Matthew, man, I really feel like we could just, especially now that we really got on set there and we're talking about glimmer glass and all sorts of stuff. I feel like we could just really go on a knowledge wisdom quest with you. However, we can't be here forever. So I think this brings us to our spotlight sign off.
All right.
5 questions to end strong.
Okay.
Question number 1 is, what's something you're super grateful for today?
Yeah, I feel like my career has just been kind of looked after. I feel like in all the times that I've had trouble and struggled with not working, like we've talked about, I just kind of hang on to the fact that, God's got me, and I'm grateful for those moments of rest in my life. And I've been fortunate enough to have the last 2 summers off on accident, not on purpose, and spend those times with my kids, and seeing that as a silver lining and not as a terrible thing in my life is really helpful to me. So I'm grateful just to be in this business, to be able to give my wisdom to other people, and to kind of be a positive reflection in this crazy business.
Dude, thank you so much for framing that so well, because everything that you said could have also been a big negative. It could be a thing to complain about. And again, it's that mindset and structuring it in the correct way. So I just thought that you framed it so great, right? I had the summers off, spent them with my kids, and that was great. So I just love that so much, man. But question number 2 is, what is a and for you, it could really go in a lot of different directions, but a TV show, film, or book that changed the trajectory of your life?
Can I say a couple?
Sure.
Okay. But I have always loved a book called Dubliners, which is short stories by James Joyce, and in particular one called A Painful Case. And it's a story about basically a person, in the way that I interpret it, a person who kind of doesn't have much influence and many relationships in the world, and holds on to a relationship that they feel is promising, and ultimately that person meets a ill-fated demise. And the idea in the book, to me, the way it hits me is like that person's life sort of ceases to exist or to matter when the last person that they had a relationship with leaves the world. So to me, a lot of my life is about legacy and about relationship. So A Painful Case is a great one if you want to. But also in 2005, I went to Sundance and I saw this crazy movie called Grizzly Man. And that sort of sent me on a quest to learn as much as I could about Werner Herzog, and some of my favorite movies like Aguirre, Wrath of God, and Fitzcarraldo, which led me to movies about making movies. There's a movie about making movies called Burden of Dreams, which led me to Hearts of Darkness, about making Apocalypse Now, and other movies like Lost in La Mancha, and even in my formative years, watching every episode of Project Greenlight. Do you remember that show?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
The other stuff I did not know, but you got the Project Greenlight. I do know that. Awesome. Question 3 is, what is something within your daily routine that you really cherish?
I thought about this question a lot, and the answer for me is my kids' bedtime routine.
Oh, yeah.
Getting home for bedtime is like the greatest victory in the world for somebody who works in the film industry. And like, I have a time that I know in prep, if I leave work by 5:12, I'll be home for bedtime. So making it to as many bedtimes as possible and doing every bedtime when I'm home is part of my daily life that I try to do every day.
What's in bedtime?
Bedtime is just the sweet time. I have 3 boys, 8, 6, and 11 months old. And bedtime is just the time when they stop being totally crazy for a few minutes before they fall asleep and actually talk to you. Praying with them, reading books, and like letting them tell you a little bit about their day that they wouldn't have said if there wasn't a sort of quiet moment in bed. It's pretty awesome.
I love that. Question 4 is, what's something you're currently trying to improve in your life right now?
I think the work-life balance is a constant struggle, because you devote so much of your life to work. Figuring out how to choose your spouse even when you're not there, and how to use your time wisely when you are home and on the weekends, is something I'm always trying to get better at, because I'm tired too. But again, hard things are sometimes doing stuff even when you desperately want to go to bed, but you're going to not sleep and take your kid to their basketball game or take your spouse on a date instead of going to bed.
Yep. I love that you brought up even going on a date or something like that. It's like, I'm tired, but sometimes you gotta dig deep and just for the date, and I think that's important. Yeah. Well, last question, Matthew. We went over a lot of different stuff, so it could be something we already talked about or something we missed that wasn't brought up. But if you wanted the listeners to get one thing for sure, what would it be?
Yeah, I think to me, it's really mostly the like figuring out the perspective of your life and understanding doing the hard work to understand what things in your life will truly bring joy and what things in your life will make you happy for a moment. And that is incredibly difficult in this business because there's fear of missing out. There's jealousy of your spouse, of other actors. Usually we're friends with people that do the same things as us. And no matter how successful you are, or you feel like you are when your buddy gets a big, sexy job out of town, it's hard not to want that for yourself instead. So I think the really hard work of figuring out, who's your master, what's your master? Is it really how many roles you get in a year? Is it your paycheck? Because you can only serve one of those, they say. So if it's career success, then you're going to serve that as your master, and that's going to be what you put all your self-worth in, and ultimately it's out of your hands, especially if it's work or money. So figuring out really what is making you joyful and not just what's making you happy today.
Very powerful, man. Thank you so much, dude. It was incredible being here with you, spending this time and connecting with you, man.
Thanks, Jesse.
Everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, think about somebody in your life right now that really needs to hear this. Just send it their way. And then also be sure to leave us a review. Let us know what you thought about it. Thanks again for being here. We'll see y'all on the next one.